Welcome to the McAllister Report. We join John McAllister, top football evaluator, as he shares wisdom and interviews coaches and athletes from around the country. Enjoy today's podcast.
Hello, welcome to the John McAllister Report. I'm John McAllister, and today my guest is the head football coach at Thomas Worthington High School, Mike Picetti. Mike is a very successful this year, 6-4, coming off of two back-to-back 2-8 seasons. The importance of being 6-4, it's the first winning record at Thomas Worthington since 1999 or 2001. It's been a while. And I thought it would be interesting to pick his brain a little bit and to see what all he did and has done to get that program on its feet and start climbing the hill, climbing the mountain. And I thought also he could help us with what he looks for in kids and what he also looks for in hiring assistant coaches. Mike was an assistant coach for 20 years and got his shot, and he's taking advantage of it. So if you'll sit back and enjoy my video podcast with Mike Picetti, the head football coach at Thomas Worthington High School. And also, if you like it, press the like button, and also keep following the John McAllister Report. Thank you and have a great day. As I said earlier, my guest is Mike Picetti from Thomas Worthington High School, and really excited to have him aboard. I will tell you why in a minute, but he coaches at Thomas Worthington High School. And Mike, what do you teach? What's your academic area?
I'm actually a special education teacher. Been doing it for over 20 years now at the building at the high school level, and it's something that I take a great deal of pride in.
You should.
Yeah.
If you do a good job, you should, because that's a tough job, and they're so needed,
Yeah, it can be. There are some days, but there's a lot of days where you get a lot of good feelings more than the bad. So
for sure. Okay, Mike, Thomas Worthington last season 6-4.
Yeah, ended up losing our first round playoff game.
Who did you lose to?
We lost to Bradley High School.
Okay. Now let's start from the beginning, but I wanted to make sure the reason I have you on is because I heard somebody during the season, I think it was a college coach. It was early in the season. I'm trying to figure where it was. And they said something about Thomas Worthington. And I said, well, from what I know, he's done a good job. And he goes, yeah, he's doing it the right way. And that stuck in my mind. And I followed you guys and your defensive linemen and things like I followed you. And my goodness, you won 6 games. And I'm nothing against Thomas Worthington, but before you got there, I think 6 games, maybe 2 years in a row, you might have had 6 games.
Yeah, it's the last time they had a record over 500 was 1999, and so this year was a big stepping stone for these young men. I took over 3 years ago, and it's been a long ride. There's been some pretty unique challenges that have come up in those years, but was very excited about the steps we took this season.
Okay, what was the first step back? Just tell me what your record was, and we'll come back. What was the first year?
We were 2-8 the first year, and that was the COVID year, and of course everything was up in the air.
Right.
Our district had a policy, since we were completely remote. We didn't really do a whole lot of lifting. We weren't allowed in the weight room. And,
Right.
it's kind of hard to build a program, to build a culture without that off season.
Right.
And I didn't have that my first year. My second year, we ended up 2-8 again. And we kind of ran into the same issue. Our district went back to online for January and February, and we lost 2 months in the weight room again. And this past year, my third year, was the first full off season we had, John.
Yeah.
And it was huge in the development of our young men, of our culture, and what we've been trying to bring here.
That's really good. Let's skip back to your early years here. Briefly tell me a background. Where did you start and how did you get to Thomas Worthington?
It's a pretty unique story. I actually played college football at Muskingum for Jeff Haycock, and going into my junior year, I at the end of my sophomore year, I ended up tearing my shoulder out, and I ended up lucking out. My head football coach in high school, I went to a small school of Bridgeport, which is in Eastern Ohio, and my head football coach was a guy named Rick Goodrich, and Goody took over at Cambridge, Ohio, and when he took over, it was right next to Muskingum. So my junior and senior year of college, I was coaching high school football for Cambridge High School. So that was 1999 and the year 2000. So that's where I got my start. From there, I moved on to Mount Gilead High School. My first teaching job out of college was at Mount Gilead. I taught from there, I ended up getting into Westerville City. I opened Westerville Central the first year that building opened. I was at the staff. I was on staff there. From there, I went over to Westland High School with Jeff Jones when Jeff was the head coach at Westland. I coached with him for a few years, and then ended up with Ed Terwilliger at Olentangy when Ed was there. Mark Solis took over after that, and then I went to Otterbein for a year. Loved every minute of it, but was offered the DC job at Hilliard Bradley with Mike Laparo, and from there I became the head coach at Thomas Worthington. So I tell people I did the 270 loop. I pretty much made my way around 270 and ended up landing at Thomas Worthington High School.
But the key is, you're going through those programs, and I've done this stuff for 30 years plus, so I know all these guys and I know the programs. And you worked for some really good guys.
Oh, I was blessed, John. Absolutely.
Well, go back to Haycock and Muskingum. Now, I want to tell you a joke about Muskingum, because I coached at the College of Worcester, much like you did at Otterbein. Mm-hmm. And so he sent me, Coach Holman sent me down to scout Muskingum and by myself. And that's what I did. Anyway, funny story, I was in the press box. Man, they had a spread. Now we're talking back in 70 or 75, I think, so 76. And met all the kind of food in that press box. So I'm just eating away. So when we go down the next week, Coach Holman said, "Do you want to be on the sidelines with me, or do you want to be up in the press box?" I said, "Press box, man." But that's a true story, by the way.
That's good stuff. That's good stuff.
And I did that, by the way. Haycock was good. You go way back. Cambridge, he's a good coach as well.
Yeah,
Jeff
Goody
Jones is a good coach. Yeah. Goodrich, see, I remember him, and he was a good coach and good program. So you were from Bridgeport.
Yes, sir.
All right. I've been there once. You had a running back or something there years ago. I've been to Bridgeport.
Yeah, it might have been the year you came down, actually. Our tailback that year was a kid named Brian Widmore. And Brian ran for 2,400 yards his senior year.
I think it might have been. And I've been to St. Clairsville with those guys.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. That's really good. And you're teaching, that's really good. You're also teaching special needs kids. And I think that's huge. And you got a good start. When you took the Thomas Worthington job, what were some of the very first things that you thought you had to do?
I guess the biggest thing that I had to fix when I got there was the academic portion of it all. The year before I got there, they had to cancel the freshman season. They had so many ineligible kids. and they had to move up senior night because so many kids weren't going to be able to walk. So the first thing I had to do was establish a culture of student athlete. And I had to change that attitude with our program. So we instituted grade checks. We instituted every Wednesday, the kids have to send me their grades. And if they have an F on their grade check in the middle of the week, they have until Friday at 3:30 to get that F up. If that F isn't fixed, they don't play. They don't play Friday night. They have to understand that there is life after football as well. And my part of my job as the head football coach here at Thomas Worthington is to make sure these kids walk across the stage in May. And I have to do my part to ensure that. And I want people who represent our program to do things the right way. If I can't trust a kid in the classroom, how can I trust him on the field?
Well, I totally believe that, by the way, or even going to class.
Yeah.
So what were the difficulties with that? You're gonna speak to young high school coaches and hopefully head coaches. So what was the difficulty that you can say?
I think it was eye-opening for some, but just like anything else, John, you set a standard, the kids meet it, and the kids that it matters to, they will meet that standard. And this is our third year of practicing what we preach, and in 3 years, I haven't had to sit a single starter because of grades. And there's an occasional JV freshman kid that still doesn't get it yet. They don't understand, and they have to miss a Friday or a Saturday morning game on occasions. But as far as my starters on a Friday night, it's never been an issue. They understand the standard, they understand the expectation, and they meet it.
Yeah, that's really good, and I still believe that's true. I'm almost true in the classroom as well. Sometimes, if you meet that,
Yeah.
Okay. That now, what would be another thing? Because then I'm going to ask you, what would be another something that you thought was huge and you're coming in?
I think the second probably biggest change and improvement we've made is our off-season program, our weight room program. When I first arrived at Thomas, obviously it was in the middle of COVID, but we didn't have 45-pound plate bumpers in our weight room. And we're a Division I high school in Central Ohio, and you've got to be able to do heavy power lifts.
Yeah.
And so, of course, it was in the middle of COVID, and everybody was ordering everything for their home gym. So
Right.
all my 45s were on a 6-month back order, trying to get them ordered in. But we were able to get that done. We were able to build a strength program that we have seen such huge gains in our kids' numbers in the first 2 years that we've actually been, like I said, this past offseason was really the first offseason we've had from the beginning to the end. And our strength numbers were like those first year numbers you get with kids that finally get in there. And we were seeing kids make 100-pound jumps from the beginning till the end. And it was great to watch, but it made a huge improvement on the field. My first year we played, we weren't strong enough and physical enough to play in the OCC. We just weren't. And like the second year, you could see we were getting a little better. But this year, we could actually play with teams. We were strong enough. We were physical enough in the fourth quarter to continue to play. And a lot of that goes back to our off-season work.
I think it's so huge. Off-season work is so huge. I mean, what bothers me a little bit, and I'll probably step on people's toes, but a lot of these kids are going to these special trainers and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not involved with it, but I used to run camps and combines to teach them the correct way to run all the drills. I mean, we would take like the pro shuttle, and the kid may do it 5 times. I mean, I don't care about, you care about times, but get it right so you never embarrass yourself. And I think the program, the seasonal conditioning is so huge, and I think kids can do it. Okay, let's jump, which I've always thought was important to me as a head coach. What was your junior high? What did you have to do there with, I don't know if you call it youth programs or your junior high programs? Did you selected your own coaches for that?
The guy who was at the middle school was a very good coach, and one of the first things I did was I went down and I met with my middle school programs. I
Right.
I contacted the youth program. My son actually played in the youth program, so I got to know those coaches pretty well. We instituted our offense and our defense at the middle school level. We put clinics on for those coaches so they understood. We invited them to practices where they could come and watch us install and coach and take drills. Each one of my coaches put together drill books for each position, and we gave that to the middle school. We gave it to the youth programs. It was all about building those relationships and just making them understand. I don't expect them to run our whole playbook, but I would want them to know 2 or 3 plays by the time they get up to me, because we have certain base plays that are run from our youth level all the way up through. And if you look at the major successful programs around the state of Ohio, it's done everywhere.
Yeah.
And that's something that we need to continue to grow on and continue to get better at, at all phases.
Do you want those guys or highly encourage them to platoon or anything like that?
Not at the youth levels, typically not. We're just trying to get out as many kids as we can.
That's what I was alluding to.
Yeah.
I've asked different guys that have done what you've done, maybe not at Division I, but I still think it's workable. You got to play as many kids as you can.
Absolutely.
Before I retired from teaching, I was an assistant junior high coach, a defensive coordinator. I might have been the best job I've ever had. It was fun, less stress.
Yeah.
But we would have just about everybody in the first half. We platooned, but not always platoon, but we made sure we could hide a couple. But because a lot of kids, they don't want to be in the second half if it's a close game.
Yeah.
They don't want to, but get them in, and I think working those J-High programs is huge.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think, with our numbers, that's something we're still fighting here at the high school level. I mean, I had 60 kids, 10 through 12, which is not very big for a Division I high school program.
No.
And, we're trying to continue to get our numbers up. Ultimately 80 is a number that I want to try to get to.
Right.
I think it's comfortable enough. And once you get to the 80 mark, you have a better shot at 2 platooning.
Yeah.
We have 3 or 4 kids that go both ways.
Yeah.
And, but the kids that go both ways are our best players.
Right.
But you want to get to the point where you don't have to do that. And, the only way you can do that is with numbers. So.
Yeah. Well, Coach Mock, when he was at Kenton, he's a very good friend of mine, he would almost platoon at the start of the game. But when it came crunch time, he really wasn't platooning. I mean, and obviously he won a lot of games.
Yeah.
What about, let's talk to assistant coaches now or young guys in college. What are you looking for in assistant coaches?
I think the biggest thing that I look for in a young coach is willingness to learn. Each coach has his own skill set that he comes out with and positives and negatives that he brings to the game.
Right.
But, guys that are open to learning and guys who don't come in with preconceived notions that they should be this, that, and the other. Everybody who's in this game or in this field, I would say 85 to 90% of us have had to work our way to get to where we were. I didn't become a head coach in Ohio until I had 20 years of coaching experience.
Wow.
So it's not something that I take lightly. I want you to earn your way up.
Right.
I don't want you to come in and have an expectation that you're the new offensive coordinator your first year. You need to come in and you need to learn from the guys that have been in this game for a long time and take that knowledge. And if you have that knowledge, you can continue to climb that coaching ladder, but understand that it's a tough business. It is a business that will chew you up and spit you out. And if you don't continue to fight and follow your dream, you might not ever get where you want to be.
I know that the generation ahead of me probably said the same thing, but I think it's getting back. I go to the high school clinics. a lot of more kids or young people are coming into coaching. I see a lot of young guys.
Yeah.
They don't all have golf shirts on like me and khaki pants, but they're there to learn. I'm joking, but I see them wanting to learn and stuff and talking to coaches.
Yeah.
Okay. Shoot, I just had another question. I was going to come back to you. What did you think as you look back, what was some of the hardest things that you had to overcome as a coach? Bill Self at Kansas said, kids are changing, and if we don't change some, we'll never stay in the profession. Do you agree with that?
I think I think athletics itself has changed a little bit,
Right.
Since I've got into where I'm at now. I think a lot of that is just the way that the generations and the way that society has changed a little bit in the past
Right.
10 years. I remember, when I came through, it wasn't anything for a coach, to get up in your face and scream at you and, say this, that, and the other to you. And it's hard for the generations now to do something like that. It's probably not a good idea anymore. And I think you just need to adjust to the clientele that you have. I mean, I don't coach any single one of my kids on my team the same way because every kid's different.
Thank you.
Yeah. And
it's not a cookie cutter world, man.
No, it's not. It's not. And you have to identify who are the kids that you can rip into, but who are the kids you need to love up to. And, it's all about recognizing that early. But it goes back to the foundation of building that relationship. If you don't build that relationship with that kid, and if you rip into them, you're going to lose them.
That may be one of the best things you've said. Yeah. Relationships. No, I'm not being funny or sarcastic, but we're going to close. This is 20 minutes long already. Go so fast. Anyway, but I think you can get into some kids, but you better be sure before they leave, we're buds again. I mean, I grew up under Woody Hayes and tried to change a little bit, but it's changed. And I think I've changed, but the relationships are so huge. And I think the other thing is I've done this camps and combines and recruiting stuff for 30 years. Not camps and combines, but the whole package. And kids really want to be good and they really want to win. And you've got to find, and I'm sure while you're finding that out, I mean, they do want to win. And now they have to, and the more you show them you care, then I think the better off you are and stuff.
Yeah, I think one of the big I wouldn't say a requirement, but one of the big things I looked for when I hired my staff was I wanted to hire guys who I knew built relationships with kids.
Right.
And because the type of kid that we have in our program, this program hasn't won in so many years.
Right.
And there are serious trust issues with these kids because the head coach changes every 3 years and nobody stays and nobody builds. And getting them to understand that we're not going anywhere, getting them to understand that we're here for the long haul and we're going to help build this the right way has been a very difficult challenge for us. But we've started to see it turn and we've started to see these kids understand that I can trust this guy. I can trust this guy. I can trust that guy. And it has made a huge difference in our program because not only do they trust us, they like being around us. And when kids like being around you and they trust you, they're going to play a heck of a lot harder for you.
I totally agree. Well, Coach Mike Picetti, I really appreciate 20 minutes of your time. And,
not a problem.
And congratulations. And I will tell you this, my first year up at Lakota, we were 7-3. Well, they had one. The next year we were 0-10. So be careful, okay?
I appreciate it.